Oh, hey, you caught me at a good time. Good morning, Pastor Mark, Jennifer, Bruce, and Sherry. I thought I would take a little bit of time this morning and give you a concise and thorough, short and long, that's a misnomer. I want to give you an update on some of the things I've been working on as it relates to campaign, project, church-related finances, and bring you up to speed on some of the places where we are and some of the things that are transpiring behind the scenes. As you know, I believe in lots of communication. I believe in transparency. I believe in ostensibility. Um, I, I believe we should always do ministry in partners or in groups, never do ministry alone. And I believe that everybody needs to be updated, at least us, the core team here, on a variety of things that I'm doing so that everybody's in the know and nobody feels left out. More importantly, it also helps us to know how we can pray for one another and support one another. So let me just provide you a variety of updates of some of the things I've been working on. And then if you have questions or comments or things we want to discuss, obviously coming up, let me see, this is the first week in February, I believe Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken, is first Wednesday. So look forward to seeing everybody there for Wednesday night, and then the following Wednesday is our next FNS meeting. So if we can go ahead and send that announcement out in the next day or so to let the FNS team know that the second Wednesday is coming up, and that'll be here before we know. But let me give you some updates. First of all, yesterday was another jam-packed service. I think we had 100 and, if I remember correctly, 168 heartbeats on campus. We had a really strong offering. And I say that because one of the trends I'm noticing as I'm continuing to spend more time in planning center giving is that the overwhelming majority of our giving is translating and transitioning to online giving, to various forms of electronic giving. I don't have those exact percentages, but I am actually looking to try to acquire some of that information so that I can share that at some of our next meetings. But it does appear from my looking in that over the past couple years, we've done a good job of building our electronic capabilities using the Planning Center and Stripe as the medium of exchange. And therefore, we're reaping some of those benefits by seeing a very strong electronic giving for our church. And as the whole world moves into this area, I was just speaking with Skylar, our banker from the Carolina Foothills this morning, the credit union, and we were talking about that. As the whole world is moving into an electronic arena, it's important that organizations, all organizations, but organizations like us, stay, not necessarily at the forefront, but stay on top of those things. So I believe we are staying on top of those things, and I shared that with Skylar this morning. I believe we're building our electronic role, our electronic support and giving, and I'm really believing that as our electronic participation grows globally, that we'll also see electronic support from that, which directly relates to everything we do. You've got to have resources to be able to do everything you do. Now, ultimately, the King oversees. We are his. Our church belongs to him. And I believe all that, but I also believe he expects us to cultivate these things. He gave us two hands and a mind and knowledge and wisdom, and he expects us to put our hands to the plow and do it. So I'm glad. I think we're staying on top of really chasing down electronic resources. And like I said, I'll try to get some more data to kind of show support. But overwhelmingly, the majority of our church support has come in the form of online giving, and so that's exciting for me. I'll share a little bit more about that, my relationship with the call I had with Skylar this morning. But good service yesterday, exciting to see the good numbers and turnout, exciting to see lots of new faces. I can't wait to build up for the relaunch of the campaign. And so I gave Jennifer last week 2 dates that we can decide on, and I wanted her to look at the calendar and talk to Pastor Mark about one of those last 2 Sundays in March. Since we launched last year in March, let's relaunch this year in March. And there's a lot of new faces that we can approach. There's a few faces that haven't fully supported or contributed yet or made commitments, and then there's some who are on the edge, and I know they're going to as they've seen our progress, come over and join us. So I'm excited about that. I've been thinking about it if there's whether or not there's a name to rename it, to maybe relaunch or something, but there's got to be some phraseology or some language we'll use. We can talk through that together. I've been chewing on that a little bit, but not a whole lot. At the update on at the meeting a week from Wednesday, I'm going to give a thorough campaign update, and I've actually determined how much money, how much pledge money has actually departed from the church, and so what's that new settling number? What's that new level of settling commitments? And then we kind of know a little more accurately, taking some of those out, where do we stand and what's that look like? And that's important because we've started to make our interest payments. We received our notification from the Foothills last week. We opened it up, and then the account was drafted. Our first interest payment was, as I anticipated, less than $300. It was $214.73. And that's a really good first interest payment. I was glad to see that. I talked to Skylar about that this morning. We're going to leave it on the 24th of every month. And we like that date for a lot of reasons, but that'll be set, and they'll just draft out of that account each month. And it'll remain the same until we do the next draw. And once we draw the next amount of loan money, then it accrues along with the current principal balance. So we owe $75,000, so we still got a lot of loan money there to draw from to be able to continue to pay for the project. Now, we also want to keep applying our monies along the way. That reduces the amount we're drawing, which reduces the overall interest payments going through the process. It also reduces the larger principal balance, which we need to start making payments on as of September of 24. So I've got all those dates in my head, and if I get a little hurried or fast, please tell me to slow down and let me share that with you. Speaking of the Carolina Foothills, we talked a little bit about that. So I noticed in our account over the weekend that we had a couple of $5 fees assessed. One was for a minimum balance fee, and the other was for a transaction fee. I asked Skylar about those. I could see what they were, and he assured me that first of all, he didn't tell us the minimum balance we need to keep in there is $2,500. So when Bruce and I take money from the campaign account at Travelers Rest over to the Carolina Foothills, we'll rebuild that account. That account's got about $1,400 in there, and Skylar told me this morning it's got to have minimum $2,500. Well, I didn't know that. He apologized for not communicating that to us, so he's going to remunerate that $5 fee for that minimum balance. The other one is when we took that money out to pay Brad his second draw, they charged us $5 for a transaction fee. That's supposed to be waived, and so he's going to take care of that also. So I'll be watching for those. Like I said before, I've never met a $5 bill I didn't like chasing down. I love chasing down smaller amounts. Sometimes the bigger amounts are easier, but the smaller amounts tend to be a little elusive. I like chasing those smaller amounts down. So I'll keep you updated on both those $5 surcharges, but that was good. Now they've got a new branch manager over there at East North, and Bruce and I need to go over and meet that person. And when we do so, then we can actually change the name of the church. And I talked to Skylar this morning. I introduced the notion to him and talked to him about it, and we've figured out what's the best route to do that. I've got to take the state documents over there, and we can make the name change in the system with two signers present. Bruce and I can do that and get that done. So when we take money and transfer it from Travelers over to Foothills this week and refund or reballoon that account, we can make the name change at that time, and then they'll process that through their system. Last thing I talked to Skylar about and was being able to divert some of those monies to some other constructive related items we had in mind. As we save money, or maybe don't spend all of it, if we want to reallocate some of it to some of the other things we're discussing. And I mentioned a few to him: re-roofing the house, possibly painting the house, painting the backside of the church, putting gutter guard on the gutters around the church, maybe even the house. A few other things like that. I mentioned all those constructive related things, and he said, well, that's up to you guys. You can do that. So we got his permission. He said within reason, and it's good to let him know. So I let him know several of those things. We talked about push bar doors. We wanted to change out some of those doors. And I talked to Brad about that last week, which I'll mention also. But so those kinds of things that are still largely outdoor related and or constructive related. He was good about that. He asked me to let him know at all times, kind of keep him apprised. There may be a thing or two where he says no, can't reallocate that. But I got the feeling that most of the things we were considering were within reason, and he was good with that. And he kind of noted that. Now, he gave us a commendation, and I want to share this with you. And I wrote it down here. He said something to the fact that you're the best church I've ever worked with. Your information's always above board. You make it easy for me. You're quick to the draw. You answer my questions before I ask them. You know, he was really commending us, and I say us because it takes all of us. It takes a team to win, to be able to do the things we do. And he actually expressed, you know, some churches are hard to work with. Some churches they just can't lend to. And he used the phrase. He said, they just don't have their act together. Now, what he meant by that, we talked a little bit, was this: their business stuff is not very good. And he noted that to me, was that there's churches out there that just don't do business real well, and therefore they can't be lent to. And sometimes it's hard for them to get beyond where they are because they can't go to traditional lenders like we do. Now, I share that not to toot our horn necessarily, because let me draw this back to legacy. I actually attribute a good portion of that commendation that he made to the notion of legacy. You see, it was those that were before us that established the relationship with the Carolina Foothills Federal Credit Union. It was those that were before us that had borrowed on several occasions and had paid it back and began to build a good credit-worthy history with them and with Schuyler. And it was those before us who established and paved the way. We are carrying the torch. It's the old Olympic notion. We are carrying that torch here in the current era. And yes, we've really improved, I believe, in our processes and our recording and our reporting, everything we're doing. I feel like we've really advanced and improved what we're doing. But I want to draw back to legacy, and this is where God has us, is that we couldn't have done this without them. And we don't want to do it without them. But we are going to carry the torch forward in this era and do a very good job. And eventually, someday, whenever the Lord sees fit, we'll pass those torches on to others. I'm in no hurry because we've got a lot to do. Let me talk about Brad and the project. So I've got this kind of prepped up here. And so Pastor Mark and I had a site meeting with Brad 10 days ago, 14 days ago. I had another site meeting with Brad this past Friday, and Pastor Mark was home with Jen, which is where he should have been. So therefore, I asked Bruce to come and to be there with me, to be that second set of ears and to assist me. It's also accountability. I like that. So let's just say Bruce and I had this site meeting last Friday, and we looked through a lot of stuff. He showed me where the low spots were. He went around the week before, took his level. He found 3 low spots. He knows he's going to deal with them. We talked at length about this water issue, and he showed me why he think it transpired there in the emergency stairwell. And of course, we earlier in the week had agreed upon the fix. His guy Hal was in there tearing it apart. They'd only found about 4, 5, 6 feet of black mold that they dealt with. Now they went above and beyond, pulled a lot of, because they had to turn corners and in front of the stairs, behind the stairs, the back wall. But you'll see they've got that drywall pulled out. They've really coated it well with something that kills any kind of mold, and then sealing on the inside. On the outside, they dug it back and they sealed it really good. And I know they're letting it dry now. I think it's going to rain tomorrow. I hope they're there today, at least on the outside, filling that in. That should take care of that area. And that area had leaks long before. It was the water in the planter box that basically exposed those leaks to us. So we had to deal with them either way. We agreed on a $2,500 fee for that as what's called a change order. That was our first real change order, and you have to pay for change orders. So we'll negotiate those one at a time as we come upon them. But I again reinforced with Brad that large planter box was probably our major concern. And if they couldn't grind it down enough to our satisfaction, they were going to have to cut some of those walls out and re-pour them. I again reinforced that with him, and he again believes that they're going to grind it down and get it straightened out. But if it's not to our satisfaction, he knows that we're going to ask them to replace those walls, those portions of that wall, those walls. And that's important to us. So I'm just letting you know that I've reinforced that with Brad 2 or 3 times. He knows that's the alternative. I hope the grinding works. I'm not sure it will. We'll wait and see, but it's got to be to our satisfaction. Otherwise, he'll have to redo it. Now, he knows that. We're at a little bit of a stopping point up here because we didn't get permitted for the entryway. We're not permitted to tear down the overhang. That's a little bit of problematic because now that Brad's kind of done up here, he can't pivot to the parking lot until we figure out how to deal with this area, because this all ties in here. And now that this area, we can't tear that overhang down yet, it's a little bit of a stopping point. So we talked about really the three options on how to best move forward. And I'm going to ask you all for your guidance and advice on that. One, I can go down to the county, try to talk to that guy and figure out what we could do to get things satisfied. Now that might open a can of worms, might be stirring the hornet's nest, or might be the thing we need. I'm praying about it. I'm asking you to think about it and pray about it. I'm very diplomatic and relational. I feel like I could go down and have a great conversation. I don't feel like I would endanger anything, but you just never know where they're coming from. But we don't know, so we're in the dark about that. Two, we can wait till Brad's done with the courtyard and apply for a deconstruction permit. That could solve everything, or it could cause the ire of the county. We don't know. That's the second option. Third option is just to work through it, leave it there, and redevelop it. And he gave us some ideas about tearing some of that structure down and making it into something that looks like a pergola or an overhang, and maybe grassing that and having some courtyard and grill and stuff up there where you'd actually leave it in place and you would do some things with it. Well, he showed Bruce and I have a hard time visualizing that, so I wanted to see some drawings on that. So he seemed to think it would work, but I got to see something in writing on that. So I've asked Kimberly Belfour to meet me up there today at 4 o'clock, and we're going to just walk this out, take some measurements, and she's going to do some rough sketches in her computer and show us what a couple of options could look like if we decided to just leave that in place and work around it. So there are options. They're not bad options. It's really not too far from this if it leaves it in place and kind of renovates it. I don't know. I can't see it. But so I've asked her to quickly throw together maybe this week some options that I can present next Wednesday at our meeting. All in all, we eventually need to tell Brad which way we're going, because he's going to start working on the small things. He's going to get the handrails, and Pastor Mark and I can choose handrails. He's going to deal with some individual curbing. We're talking about how to get the lights installed, and I showed him the lights we had and how to get the lights out here installed and the lights on the building, and dealing with a little bit of the drain. He's going to get to the door guy to come out and price some different push bar security doors for us. He's going to see what he can do about the gutter guard, and if he's got somebody in his pocket that can do that. And we talked about when they update the painting on the very back end is when they'll paint the back of this. So I can't do that now, but I did ask him to maybe we could price painting the house and even re-roofing the house. So I've given him some of those things to be thinking about and to be working on. Even that drain grate there, we're going to repaint that and make it look pristine black and really beautiful. So that's kind of where we are with this. If we get this tied in and tied off, then we can pivot to this. And because all of this here ties into this. So we actually can't go very far here until we get this taken care of and resolved. I always covet your prayers. I pray, Jen, that you'll be healing. Take as much time as you need. And let me know what I can do for all of you. I look forward to seeing you Wednesday night at first service. And man, we had our new keyboardist, and our new keyboard active this past Sunday, and it was great. I didn't get a chance to introduce myself to him, but I do look forward to meeting him. And man, I love you guys. Let me know how I can help, and please be in prayer. Thank you. God bless you. Have a great Monday.